If any of you guys know Kara Lewis and Norby Walters, the agency, they were the agencies who I ended up dealing with who sold all these bands to me. So if you want to be a promoter, they would send you a list that have like all the top hip-hop groups and funk groups and black groups.
Yeah.
And
let's hold the promoter bit for 1 second. Let's get to it. But no, yeah, and I do know, yeah, because Carlos, I believe that was a name that I heard at the end of the Eric B. and Rakim's Fade and Feel for the longest time. I was like, who is Carlos? Okay, yeah, there you go. So you mentioned LL. Actually, let's take a listen to something.
Who did the drum machine programming for that? Well, actually, I did most of the drum machine programming. And Adam Horowitz, a member of the Beastie Boys, he's on the Def Jam label. He did the intro. And Rick helped out, you know, because the demo I sent him was basically that beat right there. Definitely. I've been rapping since I was 9, so it's not like I haven't been rapping a long time. But
thank you.
I feel like a veteran. But as far as recording goes, I feel like I'm happy. You know, I'm glad to be here. I'm grateful for all the things everybody's done for me. I'm grateful that you brought me up here. You know, because everybody don't get this shit. That's right, that's right.
So that's you interviewing LL Cool J, who is
18-year-old LL
Cool J. Yeah.
You know what's amazing about that is that I've lost those. I've not heard that clip before, nor have I heard the show intro before in years and years. And just for the record, I've never brought LL Cool J in concert. And does anybody remember Astrolight nightclub? Okay, so I had LL Cool J, Big Daddy Kane, MC Light, Audio 2, and another artist. I think it was Big Daddy Kane. Nice show for Astrolight. And about a week and a half before, what happened? The place burnt down. And that would have been my big show. So I can't take credit for bringing Cool J, so I'm glad I did interview him. I think it was the Assoon brothers from Twilight Zone who ended up bringing LL Cool J, and they didn't promote it to the right audience. If I had done the show, there would have been thousands of people there. It was probably 450 people at the concert hall to see LL. The best LL show I saw was at Fresh Fest when he would bring a bed out onto the stage and hump the bed in his boxer shorts and stuff like that. You know? Girls would just faint.
Okay, yeah. So it's a visual.
It's a true story.
So anyway, now he's hosted the Grammys 5 times. So, you know, yeah, there is no segue for that. So anyway, one thing I was going to say as we move on is you didn't bring LL up, but you were bringing up other people, all right? And you were bringing people because there was a community that had kind of coalesced, if for want of a better word, around the show. Can you talk about like how that community grew? Like you start on the show, but then at a certain point, you're noticing that there is, you know, it's on community radio, but you're really seeing a community kind of growing around the show.
I was recruited into being a promoter. I didn't plan on doing it. I was supposed to go to Rochester to study recording, and Rob would tell you that, you know, he was one of those guys that brought this other guy into my life. Adrian can attest to this too. This man is no longer with us. His name was Don McLean, and we thought he was a pimp, you know. He wore a suit, very well dressed all the time, and he had money. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he financed maybe the first show or second show we did. Then it was time for me to leave. They wouldn't let me leave. I remember Rob, who's right here, saying, Ron, his eyes were like he just saw something that, you know, was incredible to him. I think it was a Monster Jam that we did, and everyone was so happy with the results and with the impact and with the joy that he basically grabbed me by my arm and said, you're not going to Rochester. You're not going to Rochester. And I was scared. I was still living with my mom at the time. I was really scared to leave the city and to live on my own. I've never been on my own before. So I looked at it as a sign. You know, you're not supposed to leave. You're supposed to stay here and serve the city. Didn't have a real job at the time.
So you mentioned Monster Jam, right?
And my job.
I want to get into Monster Jam here a sec because this is something that you kind of came up, you know, how did, you know, and this is, we have an early flyer for Monster Jam up here. And what's interesting about this is that everyone that's on the flyer is a sound system, right? It's not, because it's an early version of it. And how important were sound systems given the kind of the landscape, and that you kind of came into, being on the radio?
There weren't enough artists at the time to have a Monster Jam. We couldn't find them. People who were coming down to the show were bringing cassette tapes, and they were very poorly recorded, didn't have any sense of structure. There were no stars. There was no one you could look at that said, I want to sound like him, even though he's from Canada. So we had no choice. The people that were making noise at that time were the sound crews. And the thing about the crews is sometimes you'd have a rapper in the crew who would rap, but, people would watch and clap, and that's it. The guy goes back to partying. It's not anything significant. There's a song on the Sugar Hill label called Monster Jam, and that's where I took the idea from to call this thing the Monster Jam. Monster Jam, I want to funk with you. Anybody even know that song? Like, you got to be real old school to know that. Look at that, 5 people. All right. The Monster Jams became like an evolutionary thing where, the sound systems actually came before the rappers, right? And when the rappers started running things now, there was a market now, and there's a demand. Like, it was like being bullied a little bit. My radio audience were very bullyish, because it was one thing when you come up to a DJ and request a song, and then those people that come up 5 times and then 6 times, oh, can you play? You said you would play, but you didn't play yet. We got DJs in here. They're the most irritating people. Well, when you were on the radio at the time, we have that request line, 595-1655, and people would call in, and they would give it to you straightforward, direct, with attitude, but they were basically very demanding. So they were like, Ron, we need this, we need that. There was nobody else that cared about that community, really. Nobody that was in university, or I guess because I was on the radio, they looked at me as a man, even though I felt like a boy, you know what I mean? So they needed someone to kind of pave the way a little bit and try some things. So I got this from my mom, but my mom, she's a dressmaker. She's been a dressmaker most of her life, and she really likes to please people with her work. And I'm the same sucker, right? When people started kind of saying, can you do this? I didn't look to see if I was qualified to do it, because I wasn't, and there was no one else that was like a big brother to help tell me how to do it. There's no template, there's no blueprint. Again, what we did is I followed the Geno crews that would print up 2011 by 17 posters and tape them over every friggin' intersection on all the lampposts. And guys like X and Mastermind and who else? Dizzy, Cyclone 457, D-Shan, their girlfriends, we would all pile into my little station wagon and start at like 8 o'clock at night from Finch and Nielsen, let's say, and then go all the way to Weston Road and Finch, and every major stoplight intersection, I would stop, stay in the car, they would run out with rolls of tape on their arms and stuff, and a bucket of glue, wallpaper glue, and we'd destroy those lampposts, right? But we'd have to do Finch, and then Shepherd, and then Ellesmere, and then Lawrence, and then Eglinton, and sometimes St. Clair. And then we had this book that listed all the high schools in the city. So we decided which of the high schools would have the most black people. We need to go there too, and poster up all the lampposts in front of the high school. And these guys were crazy. When it got a little rowdy, they'd be climbing on the roof of the high schools and putting posters on the chimneys and stuff like that. It was just, it was a fun way to grow up, because a lot of these people, I don't know if Big C ever came out or Craig, came out and did posters with us, but some of the celebrities that you guys look up to now, they were some of the people that helped me, because they had enthusiasm for the music, and we didn't look at it as labor intensive to go out and do all that work. It was some of the most fun we had in our lives,
So, but the radio show gave you the platform to do all of that, basically.
If it wasn't for the radio show, if it wasn't for CKLN, I wouldn't have done any of all that. I would have been just another DJ wanting to play in Sunshine, saying, wow, sounds so good, I want 5 minutes,